Festus then, having arrived in the province, after 3 days went up to Jerusalem from Caesarea. And the chief priests and the leading men of the Jews brought charges against Paul, and they were pleading with him, requesting a favor against Paul the Jews brought charges against Paul, and they were pleading with him, requesting a favor against Paul that he might have him brought to Jerusalem while they set an ambush to kill him on the way. Festus then answered that Paul was being kept in custody at Caesarea and that he himself was about to leave shortly. Therefore, he said, let the influential men among you go down there with me, and if there is anything wrong about that man, let them accuse him. And after he had spent not more than 8 or 10 days among them, he went down to Caesarea, and on the next day he took his seat on the judgment seat and ordered Paul to be brought. And after Paul arrived, the Jews who had come down from Jerusalem stood around him, bringing many and serious charges against him, which they could not prove. While Paul said in his own defense, I have committed no sin, either against the law of the Jews or against the temple or against Caesar. But Festus, wishing to do the Jews a favor, answered Paul and said, are you willing to go up to Jerusalem and be tried before me on these matters? But Paul said, I am standing before Caesar's judgment seat, where I ought to be tried. I have done no wrong to the Jews, as you also very well know. If then I am a wrongdoer and have committed anything worthy of death, I do not refuse to die. But if none of those things is true of which these men accuse me, no one can hand me over to them. I appeal to Caesar. Then when Festus had conferred with his council, he answered, you have appealed to Caesar you shall go.
Give me that pulpit, brother. Thank you so much. Here at Flint City Church, we speak Jesus. We invite people to follow the man. I was driving down Center Road yesterday, and Brian right here, he was pulled off the road talking to a homeless man. If you ask him why he did that, he knows that man. He knows his name. He knows most of the homeless guys in this area. And he talks to them. He stops and makes sure they're okay. That comes from an overflow. He has been loved by the Christ, and the Christ has changed his life, and he desires others to meet Jesus and to have their lives changed by him. As we invite people to follow Jesus, we must be careful. Sometimes preachers become used car salesmen. I'm not a used car salesman. I don't get a bonus if I baptize 15 people this year. I'm just telling you. I'm not trying to trick anybody to Jesus. Some preachers, though, promise the world. Come to Jesus right now, 12 months, same as cash, you know. We promise people in the world, you come to Jesus, it's going to be easy street. Let the good times roll. Jesus didn't talk that way. He didn't invite people to come to him for the sake of wealth or health or success. He said, come to me because I'm the way, the truth, and the life. The truth is, even if you follow Christ, sometimes bad times stay bad. Sometimes a bad time isn't a weekend or a week or a month or a year. Sometimes a bad time is a long time. What do you do when the bad times stay bad? We find ourselves in Acts chapter 25 this morning. We're following a guy named the Apostle Paul. And the Apostle Paul is still in prison. We've been in prison for a long time. It's been like 4 weeks, and it feels like the same sermon over and over and over again. We're told that Festus is now the governor. The last governor of Judea was a guy named Felix, and Felix got fired because Felix, ruling over Judea, ruling over the Jewish nation, had the great idea to assassinate the high priest. Didn't go well for him. You can't kill the leader of the people you govern and hope they'll still like you in the morning. So Felix gets fired. Festus comes. He's the new guy. And this new governor goes to Jerusalem, the seat of the power of Judea. He goes there to kind of know the people he's going to rule. We're told he goes there to the chief priests, the leading men of the Jews. They come to him. And their request to their new governor, of their new Roman authority, they say, hey, Roman authority guy, if you want us to like you, if you want to be our buddy, we have one favor to ask of you. There's a guy in your prison up in Caesarea. Give Paul to us, and we'll be your buddies. We'll be your friend. Verse 3, the request of favor. Well, Festus isn't dumb. He goes, listen, I'm heading back to the capital. Come with me. It's 50 miles north. Come with me. We'll have a trial up there. And these guys go with him. Now, you can imagine 50 miles is a real journey. It's no cars. 50 miles is like north of Bay City from here. I don't want to go Bay City in a car, let alone on foot. These guys dislike Paul so much, they make the long journey. They're told when they arrive, Festus sits in his throne. They call Paul out. And when Paul comes out of his jail cell, he must think to himself, okay, he's been in prison now for 2 years. He's already been under 2 Roman officials. This third official, maybe Paul thinks to himself, think something's got to change now. Something has to change. I've been here in chains for 2 years. And he comes out of his cell, and waiting for him are the same guys who have been plaguing him every single day of the last 2 years. It's the same enemies. They've come from Jerusalem again. It says that the Jews who had come down from Jerusalem stood around him, bringing many and serious charges against him, which they could not prove. They're bringing the same old accusations from the same old accusers. Nothing has changed. It's been 2 years, and here Paul is in the same exact spot he was 2 years ago. Nothing has changed. Paul defends himself once again. Listen, I've committed no sin, either against the law of the Jews, against the temple, or against Caesar. I'm an innocent man. Paul must be discouraged in this moment. Imagine like this Felix guy, he's a bad guy, he's a bad governor, he's a bad leader. There's hope. Maybe the next leader will come and bring more wisdom, more authority, more justice. But it's more of the same. Paul's chains are not loosened. Paul is no closer to freedom than he was last week. Sometimes the bad times stay bad. Sometimes the bad times stay bad. I've had flus. I've had a real bad case of COVID that lasted once 3 weeks. But 3 weeks isn't forever, is it? Sometimes we get sick in ways that don't go away after 3 weeks. Sometimes we get real sick. And the sickness doesn't go away. And the doctors have no answers. And we just live sometimes we know why we're hurt, sometimes we don't know why we're hurt, and we just live in this hard thing. Sometimes our family's a mess. And the years go by, and it stays the same broken mess it was when I was 8 years old. Sometimes We're our own worst enemy. And the same addiction that held us back 10 years ago is the same addiction that holds us back today. Sometimes the bad times stay bad. What do we do? What does Paul do? The new governor is here, and it's the same old story. I'm still in chains. I'm still in prison. My enemies are here. They're still accusing me of all these things. Now, a lot of us, when we go through the bad times, we have our go-to moves. And a lot of our go-to moves are not good for us. Psychologists call these our coping mechanisms. Some of us, there's this great scene in Nutty Professor where Eddie Murphy's just crying down in M&M's. Coping mechanism. Listen, that scene supposed to be funny. I almost started crying. I'm like, it's so true. It's true. When we find ourselves in hard times, not knowing what to do, a lot of us do destructive things. We try to push it down. It won't stay there forever, will it? We deny it. I'm fine. I'm okay. No, we're not. Sometimes we go and try to do something to make ourselves feel better. Maybe we go shopping. Maybe we drink. We find a new relationship. We do things to try to make ourselves feel better, and a lot of the time, it doesn't work. Some people feel so hopeless. They see no way out. They even consider taking their own life. You'd be surprised how many people come to my office and ask my permission to end their life. Because when it's so hard for so long, you're just like, if I left, it'd be easier. If you ever feel that way, if the darkness is ever so complete, you have thoughts of hurting yourself, tell somebody. Pride has no place in that moment. Tell somebody. But I tell people every time they come to me and tell me this, I say, listen, you might think this is the easy way out, but the pain you're trying to escape, if you do this, you pass that pain to everyone who loves you. All of us left behind are left with the pieces of you. When the bad times stay bad, most of our coping mechanisms aren't helpful. They're not good. So what does Paul do in this moment? He's in the same cycle again. New governor, same enemies. What does he do? When the bad times stay bad, here's the first thing you can do. Lean on the promises of God. God made Paul a promise. Back in Acts 23, verse 11, the Lord comes to Paul in the night and says these words to him. Take courage, for as you have solemnly borne witness to my cause at Jerusalem, so you must bear witness at Rome also. God tells Paul, your imprisonment has a purpose. Someday you will stand in the seat of Roman power and you will tell that place about me. So as Paul sits in prison waiting, he has this promise from the Lord that these chains are not the end. That God told him, you ain't going to die in the cell. You will go to Rome on my behalf. And so Paul, in those long nights, in the cold, on the stone, he's like, the Lord promised me. And that gives him hope. Hope. If we believe in Jesus, what are some promises we can hold on to as we're going through bad times? As we endure the grind of every day? Let me say, Many of us, we're dramatic people. It's very easy to dwell on the bad, okay? For most of us, though, even in the bad, there's still good. I grew up really poor, about a mile from here on the east side, across Dort Highway. We were really poor. There were hard times. Got made fun of for the clothes I wore at school. We were always moving from our trailers in the middle of the night. I was like, why do we always move at night? I figured it out. We weren't paying our rent. It's like, shh. There were hard times, but I tell you what, it'd be very easy to focus only on the hard things, but you know what's crazy? My mama loved me. Something fierce. I had brothers who were my best friends. It'd be easy to look at only the bad and forget the good, but there often, even in the hard times, there is good. I tell you, don't forget the good things God has given you. But if you find yourself in a bad time that stays bad, here's a promise I hold on to. Jesus told his disciples, if I go prepare a place for you, I will come back again to receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also. Jesus says, if I go prepare a place for you, I'm going to come back, I'm going to get you. Jesus tells the disciples, I'm going to return for you. And this gives every believer in Christ hope that whatever we go through down here, Jesus himself has not forgotten us. That he's going to return and he's going to scoop us up and bring us back to himself. Paul says, I count these light, momentary afflictions as nothing compared to the glory when he returns. Paul calls his chains light, momentary afflictions. That's crazy, because sometimes the hurt feels so big, doesn't it? The hard times feel so big. And Paul goes, they ain't big. Not compared to eternity, not compared to forever. From Paul's prison cell, he writes a book called Philippians. Philippians is often called the letter of joy. And Paul is showing all of us how to have contentment in the Lord. And he writes that in chains. In Roman prison, he's writing other believers saying, Jesus is good, trust him, he is enough. This promise that he will come back and he will get us. It is a promise that brings much comfort. Even in real hard times. Even in the valley of the shadow of death. Knowing that we are not forgotten, knowing that Christ himself will return to scoop us up, this gives us the hope to carry on. There was one summer when I was in college, I worked 2 full-time jobs. Really bad idea. I worked as a restaurant manager, 4 to 10. Then I worked all night at Kmart's restocking the goods. They'd lock me in Kmart, and I would just fill stuff up every day. I didn't have a lot of skills, so I just did menial labor. That's kind of what I did when I was young. It was a hard summer. I was tired, working, stinking 12 to 15 hours a day. But I knew that summer was going to end. I'm going to put my nose in this grindstone for the next 2.5 months, and then I go back to college. My friends are there. It's going to be great. And because I could see the end of it, because I knew that this pain had an ending, I could endure to the end of that summer. In this life, we might go through hard things, but I know, because I trust Jesus, I know his promise that he will come and bring us back to himself. And that gives us hope, the hope to hold on, the hope to endure. Paul has a promise, and he holds on to it. But Paul decides to do something. Paul is there They're accusing him, and Festus, the new governor, he says to Paul in verse 9, listen, Paul, are you willing to go back to Jerusalem to be tried before me on these matters? He goes, Paul, let's go to Jerusalem, and we'll do the trial at your enemy's house on their home turf. Now, the last time Paul was in Jerusalem, they tried to kill him. The last time he was back there, literally a garrison of Roman troops had to march him out of Jerusalem for his own safety. And now they want to bring him back. What is Paul going to do? He has this moment to make a decision. Do I do nothing and let the ball roll and maybe get killed on the street by some Jewish radicals? What do I do? Let me tell you what he does. Paul says to Festus, I'm standing before Caesar's judgment seat. This is where I ought to be tried. I have done no wrong to the Jews, as you also very well know. If then I'm a wrongdoer and have committed anything worthy of death, I do not refuse to die. But if none of those things is true of which these men accuse me, no one can hand me over to them. I appeal to Caesar. This is the nuclear option for Paul. This is the Supreme Court decision. Here in America, if you go to court and you're found guilty or innocent, you can appeal a decision to the higher courts. There's a whole system. Federal, district, and if it goes high enough, it'll go to the Supreme Court, and if they hear it, and the Supreme Court makes a decision upon it, that law, that decision the Supreme Court makes, is immutable. Well, back in the times of the Roman times, if you had something brought against you as a Roman citizen, you could appeal to the emperor himself. Now, the emperor, though, if he had a bad mood, there's no jury. It's just the emperor. If he's annoyed, I kill that guy. And there's nothing to do. You're like, I guess I'm going to die. There's no jury. There's just one man's mood and your life in his hands. For Paul, that Roman emperor is a guy named Nero. If you know history at all, a lot of people say, why would Paul appeal to Nero? Nero is a psycho. Nero is the reason that the Colosseum of Rome is stained with the blood of thousands of Christ followers. Nero, about 5 years from this moment, Nero will go nuts and he will try to purge Christianity from the empire. At this moment, though, Nero has not shown his cards. He's not shown himself to be the monster he's going to become. Paul has to make a decision based on the information he currently has. He looks at the pros and the cons. What should I do? And he makes the best decision he's able to make. So here's what I'll say to you. When the bad times stay bad, make wise decisions. This sounds really easy. Be wise. Many of us react. When we're in a hard time, we let our emotions lead us. We don't talk about things. We don't admit what's going on in our own souls. We just react and kind of just stay in the cycle of badness. Sometimes we must think to ourselves, what should I do? We need to take the things in our life and ask, what's the best decision I can make in this moment? So, some things in life are black and white. If I think to myself, I want new shoes, should I steal them? What's the answer? No, the Lord says don't steal those shoes. If someone offends me, and my feelings are hurt, and I want vengeance, what does the Lord tell me about taking revenge on that person? Don't do it. I gotta forgive them. Gotta forgive them. So some things are black and white, but a lot of our lives are gray. A lot of our life isn't a 10 commandment. What job should I take? What person should I date? Should I sell my house or not sell the house? Should I take this new job or not take the new job? These are not sin or righteousness questions. They're questions about gray. And when we have these decisions, we need to employ wisdom. In the Bible, a mature man or woman of God must practice a thing called discernment. Discernment is the ability to make decisions with the best of our knowledge, with the best data we have in our hands. And Paul does that. A lot of commentaries, a lot of Christians think Paul makes the wrong decision here. There's a lot of armchair quarterbacks in academia. If I was Paul, well, you're not. I won't be mean. Armchair quarterbacking is great. I watch football. When I watch football, I always, at the TV, I'll yell, "Man, what are you doing? I would have done that." These are the greatest minds of the sport. I think we know more than them. I can't run a 40, let alone, what am I doing talking this trash? When I was a young man, I used to always, I had a passion. I'm like, if I was a pastor, I'd do these things. Then when they give me the ball, I was like, oh, this is really hard. Discernment is when you have the ball, what do you do with it? What decisions do you make? Let me give you some illustrations of wisdom versus unwisdom. Once upon a time, I needed to buy a car. So I went down to Detroit with my brother Tony, and there was this really slimy car salesman. And he had a car, station wagon that I wanted. And there was no gas in the car. Couldn't go on a practice drive. So he just drove it around the parking lot once. And we leave. And my brother Tony goes, Ernesto, do not buy that car. That man is not trustworthy. This is a con man. Don't do it. I go to dinner at someone's house that night, and the sweet old lady tells me, I tell the story, she goes, Pastor, don't buy that car. It feels wrong. So I have all this data, like all the data I have tells me. All the counsel in my life says don't buy the car. There's a lot of questionable things about the stinking car dealership. But I'm like, man, all those guys don't know what I know. If I talk them down $1,000, we'll take each other and I'll win. So I go there alone. Don't tell anybody because I know they'll tell me I'm stupid. I go there alone. I buy the car. Was that a wise or unwise decision? Unwise. Was it a sin? No. Not a sin. God wasn't like, Nesto. God wasn't mad at me for being dumb. But being dumb isn't awesome. I drive down, I buy the car in Detroit. It dies on the way to my house. I never put plates on it. It died on 23 coming north. It never lived in my driveway. That was a very painful decision to reap. I was unwise in that moment. Let me go to a different story. I don't know why I'm doing a lot of car stuff today, but we will. I had this old Chevy Venture van. I called it God's van. The Chevy Venture van, the head gasket blew again. It was the third time that thing blew. Went to the mechanic. It was going to be